In this video, we're going to look at part of a recent online class. We do most of our classes as test-taking skills, so that instead of just kind of redoing the training videos, we bring up very difficult questions that are likely to show up on your test, whether you're doing the 65, 66, SIE, Series 6, or Series 7. Most of our classes are 65, 66, but either way, you can find that under our class schedule here at our website. And so, as you see, we do cover the representative level exams, and we're now getting into the 9 and 10, and the 24, 26 for the principals who have to supervise registered reps. In a typical test-taking skills class, we cover 20 questions, but there are only 5 types that we label as hard types of questions. So in this brief video, we'll see an example of one of each: tricky, chatty, needlessly negative, falsely familiar, and what we call Roman numeral. NASA and FINRA call that the multiple, which is actually the easiest of the 5 types. But in any case, feel free to visit our website. We have all of the representative level exams covered with book, video, and practice questions. And then we also do online classes probably once every 2 months, especially for the Series 65 and 66.
And she was telling me that about the first 30 questions on the 65 were very easy for her. That's about what I would have guessed. I would have said 30, 35. But then the questions start getting hard. I don't mean the topics change. You can take any topic and make it easy or hard. And we're going to look at 5 ways to make what could have been an easy question much more challenging. You know, if you were using good writing skills, there would be no tricky questions, because that means you misled somebody. But they establish a pattern so that it looks like we're talking about one thing, and then the question ends up talking about something else. So take it nice and slow, and you won't have any trouble with those. These test your reading comprehension and your knowledge of what's relevant in this situation. They might give you GDP, but you might not need it. But then when you get used to that, they might give you a question with 4 numbers, and suddenly you need all 4. There are a few of these. It seems like you have to think backwards. You know, which of the following is least likely, or all of the following are positive except. As long as you realize what you're being asked, you should be okay. This is what we really have to watch out for. The fact that there's a familiar phrase in an answer is not enough to decide that it's true. Or if you see a definition that seems kind of non-standard or creative, you can't rule it out for that reason. So they're not testing your memorization skills. It might be a phrase such as long as the 12B1 fee does not exceed 0.25% of average net assets, and that may be something fairly familiar. Doesn't mean that that's the right answer. You know, it might be saying something else, like therefore the RIA or IAR would not have to disclose such compensation. Well, you know, that familiar phrase has to do with whether something's whether something is a no-load fund. Nothing to do with whether you have to disclose compensation. Roman numerals, is it 1 and 2, 2 and 3? Sometimes it could be, all 3 or all 4 of them. In other words, you just have to take things slowly. Don't expect to go quickly through this test. Not too many people run out of time. And you've got well over a minute on average for any hard question. So no need to rush, no need to assume that the first thing that comes to mind is the right answer. We'll do 20 of these now, and we'll do, 4 of each type, starting with tricky. I'll give you about 20 seconds here, and then I'll break it down. The owner of a Roth IRA. The traditional and the Roth have some similarities. They're obviously for individuals, and what's required is earned income, which means that other sources of income wouldn't count towards a contribution. If somebody were happen to live on passive income like rental or dividends from stocks, that wouldn't work towards a Roth or a traditional contribution. 49, what does that have to do with anything? Let's see. It's dark here. The sun is shining. Well, they must be referring to under age 59 and a half. What does that mean? If you're not 59 and a half and you take a withdrawal, it's going to be taxable, and there could be a penalty. So this person, only 49, sold some mutual funds for a profit. Okay, so A is a 10% profit, 10% penalty, and tax on the 22. B is suggesting that you pay the penalty and then you deduct it from the 22 and only pay on 19.8. And both of those seem pretty good. It would depend on the account owner's cost basis. That could be the case, although is it the case? No, the case is simply D. So they could dress something up as if obviously there's a problem, and you know, you just have to calculate it correctly. Is it A or B? No. No. There's no penalty at all. They didn't take any money out. That's why it's D. Yeah, or it could have been a traditional IRA. It wouldn't have mattered. So yeah, you sell things all the time within your IRA. If you take money out at age 49, there's going to be a problem. Now, what if it said that they were taking money out? Like she took a withdrawal of $22,000, then I guess it would be C. It would be a weird question. It would never be B, though. If there's going to be a 10% penalty and ordinary, those are two separate things. Even though B seems like it might be fair. Well, whatever. Okay. Alright, kind of chatty, as you can see. Chatty is sometimes like this. We didn't really need that first sentence. As I said, if you're using writing skills, you don't end up with hard questions. You get rid of a little extra information. But it could intimidate people. Maybe they had a textbook that didn't say inter vivos or testamentary. In the real world, inter vivos, a lawyer would probably just call that a living trust. And a testamentary trust is often called a will trust. It is mandatory when held in an irrevocable trust. So I like to use these false patterns, like, oh, I just can't remember, but obviously it's either A or B. It's neither A nor B. Well, what's the main reason to establish a trust? Some people think it's for estate planning, but very few families have to worry about that, or individuals, because you know your estate would have to be worth probably north of 25 million. You know, and imagine that, living to be 85 and you still have that much in assets. It could happen, but for a lot of people, it's because D is false. It is inefficient and not cost effective. A and B are false, even if they seem kind of like an either or. The reason most people form a trust is because D is false and because C is true. We don't want, through the will, everybody to know who got what, and often a family member will be specifically excluded, or will get half what the others got. I've had experience with both situations. So, you know, other people could have found out if they checked the county records. So which of the following is accurate of probate? The reason people avoid it is because C is true. They avoid it by establishing a trust. Okay. Minutes of annual shareholder. Well, you don't have shareholders. That's for a corporation, whether S or C. So you're trying to do more of a problem-solving approach, looking for 3 answers to eliminate. A is for corporations. Double taxation of dividends, also for just the C Corp. What does that mean? The corporation gets taxed, and then the owners want to pay a dividend. That's also taxable. A limited number of owners is true of the S Corp. It leaves us with C. Yes. Or maybe you saw C right away. Even there, try to eliminate A, B, and D so that you see where they're coming from. A and B are associated with other things, as would be D. Alright. Falsely familiar. Value investing. That was a little joke on Twitter today. Facebook now trading as a value stock. Alright, falsely familiar. Some of these answers are familiar, but doesn't mean that they're value investing. Common stock of many issuers and varied industry groups. That's a familiar concept known as diversification. So it's not necessarily this. And maybe a lot of value investors would also be diversified, but so would a lot of other people. So would a lot of growth investors, you know. Low, okay, also falsely familiar, maybe even tricky. There are two things at least that are low if you're a value investor. But if anything, the stock price is low, so the yield would be higher, if anything. Either way, you wouldn't be doing it specifically for the dividend. High price to book, that's growth. D, low price to book. So low price to book, low price to earnings. If anything, high dividend yield. So yeah, we're setting these questions up so that if you know a little bit and you go too fast, you're going to miss them. You know, a lot of people learned quite a bit from the textbook. Then they just start rushing through the questions. And then one of the worst things you can do is just do the same test 4 or 5 times. I mean, if you're taking practice exam 2, it's only valid if you the first time you take it. After that, your score doesn't even matter. You know, you should just be looking at the questions and answers after that. You know, inefficient markets. Inefficient. Indexing is efficient. Don't try to pick individual stocks. So it's not one. Strategic is, for example, an age-based portfolio. Whatever is happening is based on the investor, not somebody's predictions. Not that 2 and 3 go together, but technical analysis, trying to figure out where the stock or the index is going next based on market data. Tactical has to do with market timing, so it's 2 and 3. Yeah. If markets are efficient, you do 1 and 4. So that question could go either way, at least.